Tech News Weekly is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to Stitcher.com/GFQ.
Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tech News Weekly. I'm Andrew Zarian, and today it's a two-man show. John is not here. I have no idea where he is because I'm actually speaking to him as we're doing the show. He had to go somewhere at 5:15. He's not telling anybody where he's going. It's a whole top secret thing. I think he's defecting GFQ and Tech News Weekly, but it's all right because I'm here with Erik Lanigan. How you doing, Erik?
Hey, Andrew, I'm good. Glad to see you guys are still around. We haven't talked in 3 weeks since the whole storm, so glad to see you guys are still there and you've got the whole new gear.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for people. Obviously, we haven't done a show in about 2 weeks. Erik's last show here was 3 weeks ago. New York got hit with a amazingly large storm. Hurricane Sandy hit New York City, and many parts of New York City devastated. Downtown Manhattan underwater. Parts of Queens, I mean, literally gone. Homes have burnt down. And, it's just devastated. Staten Island is just still devastated. But where I am in Queens, and I want to thank a lot of the viewers. They called. They were very concerned. We got a bunch of emails from listeners of this show, of What the Tech, of all the other shows that we have on the network. They were very concerned because if you watch the news, and this is fascinating how mainstream media changes the perception of things, and kind of they make things into a much larger issue. If you watched the news, you would have thought the entire borough of Queens, New York was gone.
Yes. Because that's what I thought at first. I saw those photos of just the complete fire destruction. I mean,
that's really, but Queens is very large, and there's about 2.5 million people that live in Queens. So it's a very large borough.
And that's what I think is, not being someone who's not living right there. What I'm seeing on the news and on photos and even on the web is that because it's so dense, there's so many people living there with so many different neighborhoods and streets that you can have some that are just totally destroyed, wiped out, no electricity, and you go a few blocks away and they're like nothing's changed.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to bring up a little issue because you kind of your knowledge base is humongous, Erik, and it's kind of tech, but it's not tech. But I thought I would discuss it on the show. My wife's aunt's house caught on fire, and half the house is gone after they turned the power back on. They turned the power back on, and it caused something to happen, a surge. I don't know what the exact technical wording is, and the house caught on fire after they turned the power on, and they're saying many people's homes caught on fire that way. When the electric company turned the power back on, I guess they might have sent way too much currents or voltage or whatever it is, and the breakers exploded.
Wow.
And half the house is gone now.
Wow.
And I've never heard of anything like that.
Was it an old system? Do you know? Like, was it like a 100-year-old system? The
I don't
wires?
know. I don't see that's what people ask me, but I don't think it's that old. I mean, it's a newly rebuilt home. Maybe the house was built in the 1950s, and probably an extension was put on it in the 90s. So it's a fairly remodeled home. It was just bizarre because everything was getting back to normal, and finally the power came on, and they were very excited that the power was coming on. And Jessica and I were out having a drink that night, and we got a call saying that the house is on fire. And it's actually I might have some pictures if you want to see, Erik. I can send it to you. It's
sure, yeah. I mean, that's horrible. So this happened like way after the storm destruction, right as everything's coming back. I mean, that makes it twice as bad.
Yeah, everything was coming back and everything was fine. They were very excited to get their power back, and just caught on fire. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'm unfortunately I don't have it in my system to pull up here and to pull it up on the screen, but believe me.
What has the electric company said? Do they have any idea?
No, I don't know if they've commented on it. I know the fire department, the fire marshal came, did an inspection. They said it had to do when the power came on. I don't know the exact technical info.
What makes those transformers explode? I think that's a surge, isn't it?
I guess so. I mean, and they're saying a lot of places in Long Island, when LIPA turned the power back on, Long Island Power Authority, this is what happened. And it's just bizarre to me. And I would love to know I sent you the link, Eric. I would love to know if any of our viewers kind of have an understanding on how these things work and what could possibly cause this. I initially thought, like, maybe they left the candle on, they left the house, and that's what happened. But apparently, it's not what it was. I mean, they're saying the damage is over $100,000.
Oh, wow. Now, what photos are these? This is
the house. This is
the actual house?
That's the actual house.
Oh, man. Yeah, like just half of it is just burnt.
Yeah. Gone.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a scary thing. I mean, good thing they have insurance and they put them up in a nice house until they rebuild this. But crazy things happen here in New York. But, I mean, we're okay. We're here. GFQ's here. We have new equipment, courtesy of Telos. We did a live install last week. That's why we weren't on the air. We installed the Axia Radius console and all the goodies that go along with it. I know Eric has played around with this stuff. It's unbelievable. We're still getting the hang of it. So if the audio sounds a little wonky, guys, let us know, and we're going to start working on it. But let's get into some tech news, Eric. Some big stories.
Let's do it.
Broke out this week. Steven Sinofsky, Microsoft's head of Windows, the guy that single-handedly was a driving force for Windows 8 and the total appearance of Windows 8 and where Microsoft has gone with Windows, has left. Baffled.
Yeah, he's gone. A lot like Scott Forstall.
Very much like Scott Forstall. And if you read any of the articles, All Things D had a great article, TechCrunch, Mashable, they all had really nice articles on this. There was a big comparison between the two when their work, I guess their work pattern and the way that they structured themselves were very much similar in kind of creating teams and putting people against each other.
Yeah, surprising parallels. Although, and tell me this is what you're seeing also, because of course this is collected from numerous rumors and the latest speculation that is journalistic certification of speculation. So they seemed both to be sort of these tyrants. They're creating these little fiefdoms within the company and actually vying for the CEO position of their respective companies. He wanted Ballmer's job, Sinofsky did, and obviously Scott Forstall wanted Tim Cook's job as CEO. And they were, consolidating power, and you see words like that in these articles, and that they had. They made a lot of waves, and they made people actually quit because they couldn't work with them, like top-level people. Like I think a top-level Xbox guy. I think Sinofsky was also, he killed the Courier project, that double-screen tablet. So he did some
He also killed the entire idea that you might take Windows Phone and make it into a tablet. The original idea behind it was to kind of have a tablet-like device for Windows Phone and obviously bridge the gap between Windows and Windows Phone, but not have a unified operating system for a tablet and for the desktop.
So more of the macOS iOS model.
Similar to that. Yeah, that was the original idea, and that's what they were trying to do. And Sinofsky shot that down immediately and wanted nothing to do with it. And he really single-handedly was one of the driving forces behind this move. That's
interesting. I hadn't heard that one. What also is interesting about the comparison between this and Scott Forstall, I think it's too soon to say that this is because Windows 8 did not perform or that the Surface tablet did not perform for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest is the person, the lady who's now in they didn't totally promote her to his former position, but she's sort of now the de facto leader of this Windows team. From what I've read, she was actually more in charge of this Windows 8 interface than he was. So if the look and feel, some people are saying, oh, maybe the look and feel, everyone hates it, consumers didn't like it, so they fired him. It's way too soon to tell. And if that was the issue, they fired the wrong guy. Unlike Scott Forstall, who it seems was behind some of the most hated interface quirks of iOS, like the skeuomorphic page turns and all that leather stitching and crazy ideas like that. And iOS maps and Siri, actual product blunders that he, I guess, took the fall for or maybe caused. Sinofsky, it seems a little bit different. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the story with Sinofsky right now is that they were planning on... there was an exit idea for him prior to the launch, and Microsoft kept him on board so that he could execute the launch because he was really good at it. I mean... for his personality being somewhat aggressive.
Because he had done Windows 7, right? Like he took the failing Vista team and turned it around and produced 7, like on schedule, and like he got big accolades for that. And also Windows 8 came out on schedule too.
But I don't know if he came in when the ball was already rolling behind it and he kind of got credit for it. I don't know the exact timing of it for Windows 7. I'm not too sure.
I don't know either.
But a lot of interesting stories. You know, Paul Thurrott on Tuesday on What the Tech, he told us this mind-blowing story about how he was extremely aggressive, and the PR department totally changed, and their attitude towards bloggers and towards this transparency and openness totally changed when Steven Sinofsky took the position, and they became almost this aggressive company towards people that would potentially write positive stories about them.
So they became more closed. They became aggressive towards the media.
Yeah,
that's
very
bad.
closed.
That's always a bad sign.
Very closed. And this was under his leadership. And it's something that, that was one of many stories that Paul said on Tuesday. And he actually said he needed to find out if it's okay to tell another story about it on next week. So I'm really curious on what these are. But according to Paul, and I'm not quoting him here, he said it was miserable dealing with Steven and his reign in his position.
And you've probably covered this with Paul and everyone too, but it's they're doing a major restructuring. They used to have sort of the Office team and the Windows team and the video game team and the hardware and the Bing and web services were all kind of competing within the company for the yearly annual numbers, the sales numbers. Whereas now, I'm guessing from competition from Google, especially, and also Apple and others, they're really trying to reform everything into a cohesive team. They don't want people to be competitive with their code. They want them to share the code. They want to be a group effort and provide more of a suite of services, kind of the way Google does.
With that said, there's a lot of issues right now with Microsoft, and I'm really curious where the next year is going to lead them with Windows 8, because at the time of the Windows 7 launch, I remember people going up to I mean, in the tech circle, obviously. I'm not talking about, my grandmother going up and telling people, you know what you need to do? You should install Windows 7. It's great. But people that kind of know something, they were excited about the upgrade. They were excited to, oh, wow, Windows was a pig. We want nothing to do with it. Windows 7, oh, my God, it's so much better. I'm not hearing that this time around. And I'm really wondering why and they've spent millions of dollars on marketing this product. Why aren't we hearing from regular people saying, wow, you know what, Windows 8 is great?
I think it's the same reason that we're not seeing the Surfaces fly off the shelves. And I think that's because it's just too early. It's basically a developer preview. And this is why I immediately disregarded the commentaries that said that it's because of poor Surface sales. It's been on the market for less than 30 days. I mean, of course they planned for that. They're not dumb. They understand that they're playing the long game with this. This is a long-term evolution of the entire Microsoft product portfolio, the entire interface of all their software. Right now, the Surface, the ARM-based one that does not run Intel software, can barely run any software. There's almost no software for it. So I understand they did have to get something to markets to give developers something to work on. But yes, right now, buying a Surface tablet would have very little software, and it's very early. So I'm not sure I recommend that to someone unless you're a hardcore geek and you know what you're getting into. And similarly, an upgrade to Windows 8 might be baffling and confusing, and you'd have to learn a whole new interface and deal with that touch-optimized start screen. So I would not recommend that for a desktop or a laptop user unless they have the best trackpad in the world.
In a way, I using Windows 8, you're not in Metro as much as people think they're going to be in Metro. And I think their marketing is totally wrong. What they should have done was marketed both desktop as, and shown the desktop and shown Metro for the tablet. I think a lot of people are going under the assumption that, oh my God, Windows is gone, desktop is gone. This is what Windows is now. I don't want this. And they're not getting excited for it. They're not, going to it. I would love to see the projected sale numbers for computers this quarter with Windows 8 on there. But I almost feel like it's this false representation that you're always in Metro, which you're not. You're in desktop majority of the time.
But you're talking about traditional software, right? As opposed to designed for Metro and sold through the Microsoft App Store.
Yeah, I'm talking about traditional. Yeah. And
that's the problem. It's because that's all the software is still that x86 based, desktop based software. And I think I don't know how I could tell someone to go and buy a Surface tablet right now when there's virtually no software for it.
Yeah, and you know the other thing is until they get multitasking done right on Metro, they're gonna have a lot of problems, and a lot of people are not going to be happy in Metro because you really can't multitask.
Now you mean you're referring to the user interface side?
Yeah,
of it,
the UI side of it. Yeah, and that kind of ties in with this because if now that Steven Sinofsky has exited, what direction does Microsoft take? Obviously, they're not going to go backwards and say, "Oh my God, Metro is a disaster. We're not going to go with this. Let's go back to desktop." That's not going to happen. But I would like to see how it's going to evolve over the next year, and what their positioning is going to be on Metro and the development of Metro.
I saw what could be the first little crack in the facade. Did you notice on the latest Xbox dashboard update, the Metro interface got a little bit of a reflective coating? It's slight, but now the tiles, they pop out a little bit and it's just a little bit reflective. And I do see that as a change. I remember they were really pushing that utterly flat, two-dimensional, monochromatic, and they've already backed off from that, at least on the Xbox. So that's interesting, I think.
They had the 3D look, right? It was angled before, and then they went to the flat look, and now they're going a little bit more angled.
Yeah. So as I think they should. I mean, they have the graphics power. It's what consumers are used to seeing graphically. It's I'm not a fan of that like duotone, like 1960s looking print style.
I don't know. It's a really fascinating time for this company because they're in a position where this thing has to be successful. And numbers-wise, yeah, of course it'll be successful, but what is the average consumer going to think? And what do they do now that Steven Sinofsky has exited?
So what's your gut reaction? Scott Forstall, my gut reaction is we're going to see major changes to the interface and the software direction. What about Sinofsky? You think we're going to see any real changes?
Well, Forstall, Johnny Ive is taking over the position. I mean, software and hardware development, he's getting in charge, and I welcome that because
for the first time with user interface. He's never done user interface before.
He's never done UI, so can a hardware guy make UI? I think Apple's in a position where they won't let it. Yeah, I am too, because you know what he's capable of. But I'm not really too sure what the person taking over Steven Sinofsky's position is capable of. So I don't know. Only time is going to tell. But I have to tell you this, and we'll move on to another story. I think desktop in Windows 8 is really pretty. They've done a really good job with desktop, and that's something that people don't really talk about.
That's right. That they certainly bury that lead.
I mean, they've really done a good job with it, and it looks a lot better. It actually makes Windows 7 look dated.
Really?
And yeah, I think just the way that the bottom bar is done, and when you pull up an application, they've really done a good job with it, in my opinion. I think Windows Explorer looks totally different, and they've done a good job with that. I just feel like this is something that nobody's talking about. They're just concentrating on Metro when there's a lot more to it. So I don't know. We're going to see where this goes, and we're going to see how this plays out. But Steven Sinofsky has exited Microsoft, and there was a leaked document. I don't know if you saw this. Paul Thurrott posted, and he somehow obtained it and posted it on his website, and he said he's seeking new opportunities. I mean, that's...
I saw another quote from him saying that he said, like, don't read the rumors, don't listen to the rumors because it was totally a personal decision. But then all the rumors and what we know seems to suggest otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, and I could tell you from what I've heard, a lot of people are really happy that he's out.
Really?
Morale has totally shifted that he's out.
Wow.
So let's see how, hopefully it helps and things stay good over there. I want to kind of touch on this, and it would be great to have John on here, but he's not here. But RIM has announced that they're going to have a launch event January 30th for BlackBerry 10. Too little, too late, Eric? What do you think? I mean, January is 2 months away.
I think too little, too late. I've never been a RIM expert or a BlackBerry expert, but here we are talking about whether Microsoft, we're not even mentioning Windows Phone 8 or Windows Phone 9 or how it's lagging poorly behind Android sales and behind iOS. I think it's too crowded of a market, and they got blindsided. BlackBerry got blindsided by the biggest competitors in the world. Apple, Google, and Microsoft hit the market with a whole suite of cloud-based products and services and a whole new graphical and hardware design. And they were not prepared for that competition. And I don't see how they could come up with good enough ideas to come back at this point.
You know what's fascinating? I had a meeting recently with a bunch of guys, corporate guys, and we were just talking after the meeting, and he goes, "Hey, do you know what's going to come with BlackBerry? Do you know what's happening with BlackBerry? I heard there's a new phone coming out." And I said, "Why? You don't like the iPhone?" He goes, "We hate the iPhone." And I asked him why. He goes, "The email client is awful." And I guess because I don't do too much email, and I never had a BlackBerry. I don't know what I'm missing, maybe, but they were really excited about the BlackBerry, the new one that's going to be coming out. So listen, they may have a shot. I mean, if they could hang on to their enterprise, percentage of user base and gain some traction with the consumer level, because it's a pretty phone. I mean, it looks like it's going to be pretty nice. They may have a shot, but the reality is this should have come out this year.
It should have come out 3 years ago.
I believe, what was the release date? April? Do you remember that? They delayed it. It was supposed to be April. And in April, we were saying that's too late for them to release this thing.
Yeah.
January 30th, and I believe February is going to be the launch. Sometime in February is going to be a launch. I don't know, Eric. I mean,
what did they do with the Playbook? Did they just put that out to pasture?
The Playbook 2 came out. It was really no buzz. And I think parts of it have to do with they're running out of money and they really can't market these things like they used to. You remember the whole thing with Palm when Palm put out the Palm Pre? They put millions of dollars into marketing of this thing and they just ran out of money.
Yep. They made a last gasp in a new market and it didn't take off.
And they could have done well. It wasn't developed enough and they didn't have enough time. It was sad, unfortunately, for them because I was a big fan of Palm and I thought they did a great job, but
it's also really difficult because, I mean, look who they're competing with. Google, for instance, puts all this development resources into Android, which they give away for free. A lot of Apple services. When you have a company that's as big as Apple, Microsoft, Google, or Amazon, you can shuffle around costs and end up, in Amazon's case, giving away the hardware for practically nothing. I think eventually they probably do want to have a totally free tablet or a free consumption device, and then make up the money in other ways. If you're just a hardware maker or just a handset maker or just a software maker, you're not going to be able to compete with this new. It's a new market. It's a new landscape.
You know what's interesting? I had this discussion with somebody about Android and how it's going to be very difficult for anybody to put out a phone and to be successful with a new platform. And they said, well, how about when Android came out? Android was awful, the first generation of Android phones. And I said, yeah, they were awful, but Google has a lot of deep pockets. And it was still early on in this smartphone market that they could have screwed up for 2 years, had awful phones on the market, and survived. And that's what they did. I mean, they had a couple phones on there. I think it was a G1 that was the first phone, and it was awful. They finally got their act together by the time that the Droid came out. And now that they've matured as an operating system, and they're extremely competitive, and they're dominating the market. But I don't think companies like BlackBerry and Microsoft have that same flexibility of putting out a 1.0 device in a market that's evolved over the last 5 years.
Right.
They won't survive. Nobody's going to look at this device and say, you know what? The next one will be really good. No one's going to do that with these phones. So I don't know. It's a fascinating time. I hope it survives because more competition, the better. But you don't see this being successful, Eric, right?
Right. I mean, I never like to see the loss of a major competitor or the loss of a major company with tons and tons of employees. But the world changed around them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just shows you how some companies just fall behind.
Like the horse and buggy whip industry.
Yeah. I want to go into a really bizarre story, Eric.
I can guess what that is.
The John McAfee story is just, there's so many twists and turns here. John McAfee, millionaire software developer, McAfee Anti-Virus, along with many other softwares. He's on the run from murder charges and police. And he's in hiding right now because his next door neighbor was shot in the back of the head. And he's the prime suspect in the murder. he's claiming that the Belizean, what would you say? How would you say it, Eric?
The Belizean police.
The Belizean police are out to get him. The government is out to get him, and they're going to frame him. They're going to torture him. They may kill him. And they killed his dog. Apparently, there was apparently something that his dog got killed by them. I mean, and he hid under a board, under a sand, he buried himself in the sand and hid from the police until they left. And now we don't know where he is exactly. He's on the run.
He could still be buried in the backyard.
He could still be buried in the backyard. But what a crazy story.
Well, I mean, and the weirdest thing is the reason he's there on this island, I think it's an island, right?
Yes, San Pedro town of island of Ambergris.
And so he's retreated there along with a couple of other former American citizens, it said, who sort of went to this country. I don't know their story, but at least what he's doing is he's trying to purify various drugs recreationally that are available in Belize. MDPV, I'm not sure what that is. Is that the ingredient in bath salts? Because he's talking about he wanted to purify the psychoactive compounds colloquially known as bath salts. That's a quote from this article.
Yeah, MDPV is in...
I guess that's bath salts. But,
yeah, it is bath salts, yeah.
It's obviously made him just out of his mind paranoid. He thought, I mean, who even knows if his dogs were actually poisoned? I mean, he's working all these chemical labs.
Oh my God.
The cops came over to his house and said numerous times because they thought he was running a meth lab, and then it wasn't meth, but it was like all this other stuff that like is legal, but then it destroys your brain cells and all this crazy stuff. So he's been posting on this forum apparently about how you insert these drugs rectally from. I mean, it just gets weirder and weirder. And the police show up and he hides in the ground.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't even. It's such a bizarre story where who knows if he did kill the neighbor. Who knows? I mean, I can't. I have no idea. But this is such an insane story. And
this has got to be the weirdest tech story I've ever heard.
I was trying to think if there was any other story as bizarre as this one over the last couple of years that I've been doing this, 4 years that I've been. I've not seen a story like this where this guy. I mean, McAfee is a huge software giant. I don't know. Is he connected to them in any way still? I don't think so, right?
I saw one article that said that he was fired shortly after the company went public in the 90s.
Yeah. This is just insane.
It's so weird.
He's in the drug business now.
And for it to be something as mundane and 1990s as McAfee Anti-Virus, it's not like it's not Instagram, it's not some hot new thing. It's McAfee Anti-Virus, and this crazy bizarre story behind the namesake.
I'm really curious where he is right now. I'm really wondering where he is.
Is he in hiding? Does it say?
I believe so because he made a post. He made a big blog post saying that he's in hiding and they're going to kill him. They're going to torture him. Yeah,
he says police they're coming to kill him.
Jeez.
I saw another thing saying that he was cavorting with numerous high-profile drug gangs in Belize to acquire various chemicals.
Jesus. I mean, this is just insane.
So he could have Belizean mafia cartel connections. I mean, it gets so weird.
Yeah, maybe they're helping him out. Maybe they're going to bring him to the States. Who knows?
I'm switching to Norton.
But you know what? I'll tell you, if I was on the run, if I committed a crime, the last place I would want to commit a crime is Belize.
Yeah.
You don't
go to a Belizean jail.
No, you don't go to a Chilean jail. You don't go to any of the South America. I would not want to commit any crime. You know what I do if I was in there? If I lived in that country, I would stare at the wall and just sit in the dark and just mind my own business and not talk to anybody. I would be so terrified.
I want to see what crazy shenanigans Peter Norton's going to get into next. How great would that be if he did something that totally paralleled the same story, a different island but the same circumstance? It's like these antivirus guys are crazy. Kaspersky, what are you doing?
Well, Kaspersky, we know what he's up to.
What is he up to?
I don't know. Some crazy stuff going on over in Russia.
Oh, okay.
I want to touch on the Wii U a little bit. Did you hear my rant about the Wii U? I don't think we did the show. So I had a chance to play with the Wii U a couple weeks ago. I know someone that got their hands on one, and I spent about an hour with it. And I was very impressed. it's as fun as the Wii. The games are, exactly what you expect from the Wii. My expectation level was exactly where it's supposed to be. Because I'm a big Zelda fan, I'm a big Mario fan, so I had fun with it. And I was playing around with some of the demo games. The one thing that I was actually a little surprised at was the poor build quality for the controller. It felt empty. And the touchscreen was surprisingly really responsive, but it felt like it's going to fall apart in my hands.
That's interesting. I'm not surprised because the Wii U, the original Wii, I always thought looked like it had just like it was a McDonald's toy for 4-year-olds that you unwrapped in a little plastic bag.
You know what's really
it's
funny?
So cheap.
You described it so well right now. You described it so well because I even feel like the Wii U, the nunchuck, feels a lot more sturdy than the actual touchscreen controller. And
did you have a Wii?
I do have a Wii, yeah.
Okay, so did they change the nunchuck?
The nunchuck is the same almost. It's identical. They may have tweaked it a little bit, but I didn't really concentrate on the nunchuck. I was actually playing with the touchscreen one, and when you're like scrolling and you're doing stuff on there, it's a really cheap LCD. So every time you push, the screen bends.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah.
You mean the actual panel bends? Do you get like the little rainbow effect?
I didn't push that hard, but I felt like I didn't want to like damage it because I wasn't even supposed to be playing with it. But
that's not good. I thought what you meant at first was that just because it's a slow refreshing screen.
No, the refresh is actually really good. No. Like the refresh, I was surprised. Like the responsiveness, I was surprised at, and I actually liked it. But it just felt so cheap. Where like I know it's for kids, but like a kid. I'll give you an example. Like on my phone, right? You can push as hard as you want. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to break this screen. On that, if I push at the same level that I'm pushing now, I'm afraid I'm going to crack that screen.
That's not good.
And they had to cut corners. Obviously, they had to cut corners for cost measures. But I was really surprised. And I said this to Paul, and Paul brought up the fact, he goes, maybe you're working on like a demo, like a dummy unit. Maybe it was like a beta, a prototype or something. And listen, very, very well, it's a possibility that it could exist. I could have had a prototype unit in front of me and it wasn't a final build. It could be. But as far as I know, this was told to me that this was the Wii U. And if it is the Wii U, which I'm 90% sure it is, I don't know, really cheap. And this thing is going to crack right in half.
Have you ever read, I'm trying to pull it up, I think it was on oneup.com in their feature section, but I don't remember. It's a few weeks ago, I read a fascinating article on the differences, the growing chasm of difference between the Japanese gaming market and the American gaming market. Have you heard about this?
No.
So, obviously here, our big things are first-person shooters. Call of Duty is a big release. I was going to mention that in relation to my cool pick later, because I was going to talk about Borderlands 2. So first-person shooters, photorealistic, Halo, all those games. And apparently, Japanese game designers and game manufacturers really snub their noses at what they called Western games. So anything American or European, they really don't like those games. And what and in Japan, video games, like here, like it's a cool thing. It's a little nerdy, but there's a diehard segment now that's really selling that Call of Duty flies off the shelf for like 18 to 34-year-olds, whereas in Japan, it's still a taboo for adults, for grown-ups to play video games. And so you mostly get video games targeted at very young kids. And then it's super nerds. And the super nerds only want to play these extremely complicated Japanese RPGs that don't export. No one in the US wants to buy them.
Interesting.
So they're very exclusive to Japan. And they've got those very stylized Japanese anime characters. And the other big category that sells very well is called Moe. Do you know what that is? M-O-E, it looks like Mo.
No, what is that?
I barely understood it. I had to go through the Wikipedia page and try to figure this out. It's like a weird... It's like when they turn the characters into little infants, and it's almost like a pedophilia thing. It's so bizarre, but that's the Japanese gaming market right now. And they look at the Call of Duty franchises and stuff like that, and they just say, "Oh, that's weird." But we're looking there and say, "Well, that's a lot weirder."
Oh, this is bizarre. I'm looking at some of these pictures. That's really weird.
What'd you look up?
Moe anime, and I'm looking at topless anime pictures now.
Yeah, it gets disturbing.
Yeah, this is so weird.
It's weird. They look like they're like 4 years old. I mean, it really is like, it's like you shouldn't be, it's like it's just too weird.
Yeah.
And that's what people are saying. Like, it's this whole now cultural thing. I don't know. I don't really know about Japanese culture. I started reading this one night and got into these articles, and it was like, oh my God, I had no idea it was so strange over there.
Yeah, I mean, I personally never got into the first-person shooter, and really, Nintendo's going to capitalize on the people that are not really first-person shooter hardcore gamers. I mean, they're capitalizing on the side-scrolling, or like Zelda or Mario and games like that. I think that's how they're going to capitalize. But I am interested in it. Surprisingly, I'm not turning my back on this thing. What is disappointing is that they're shipping it incomplete and it's missing the what is it called? The TV service?
I think so. Yeah, the TV
service is going to be missing from this, and that was one of the things that I was really looking forward to. I was very excited for that, and my phone is also.
That's the DVR streaming thing.
Yeah, and it was gonna have Hulu, Netflix, and I thought it was pretty cool. And they were gonna team up with some cable companies so you could watch live content on there.
Now, you think that's a big launch or loss? Because I think it's going to happen just a few weeks after the launch. It says, like a download.
It's disappointing to me because I thought that would have been a huge seller for it. But I guess it doesn't matter because they're saying it's gonna be pre-ordered for months. They're backed up for months now with this device.
Wow, already.
I mean, you're not going to be able to get your hands on it for a long time. So if you were hoping to get it for Christmas, guess what? If you didn't pre-order, the odds are you're not getting it, and the lines are saying are going to be unbelievable for this thing.
Why can't these game and toy companies actually meet a demand for Christmas? This has always struck me as child cruelty. I mean, a little kid saying, "Why didn't Santa bring me the Wii U? He brought everyone else the Wii U. Why didn't he bring it to me?" And you have to say, "Well, I get to pre-order it, and then we had to buy it on eBay." And
well, do you think that they manipulate that number and they do it on purpose
to sell out?
Yeah.
Or to make it seem like the demand is low?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I've always wondered about that because you'd think that it would make so much anger and resentment with the people who missed it and didn't get to it. And you'd think that when they sell, like, I remember when like the Wii was selling for like $1,000 on eBay, arguments were made that, well, Nintendo doesn't see that extra money. It's just the person who bought one for $299.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It might really depend on whether there is a hardware shortage, because I think there was with the original Wii.
There was. I actually waited online for like 2 hours to get it. Yeah.
Yeah, the gyroscopes and the little components I think were hard to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, something they have to have a reason. Who knows? I can't figure it out. I mean, let's say you're going to sell 1 million units for the holiday season, and there's a demand for 500,000 units. Why not make 1.5 million and get everybody, make them happy?
Yeah.
Because they want to see those lines, and they want to see the hysteria behind it, and it's sold out everywhere. I wonder if there's some analyst that did like the math and said, you know what, for the long term, it's better to sell less units at first because then everybody wants it.
Makes the headlines. Yeah. Makes the news, makes the evening news. Look at those lines wrap around the store.
Yeah. iTunes 11 delayed into the end of November. So a couple more weeks. This, for people who don't remember, they showed this. It's a new facelift. They've changed iTunes, and when iOS 6 came out, everybody's like, where's iTunes? And turns out they've delayed it. It was supposed to be out in October. They delayed it again. And now we're getting the end of November. Have they stated why it's been delayed so
No, but I have a feeling that what happened was, the screenshots, it was, they leaked the web page, I think, originally. They had not intended to announce it because, Apple does not pre-announce products usually. But all of a sudden, iTunes 11 web page went live. Someone screwed up, and I think someone found it through search results or something like that on the web page. And so they, rather than just retract it and pretend it never happened, they left it up and they put a little badge that said, coming in October. I think this was like in September that this happened.
Yeah.
So I think it was just too optimistic. I think they tried to cover a mistake, but they overestimated how quickly they could get it done.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are waiting for this. I don't know why you're waiting for it because I am not too crazy about iTunes to begin with. I think it's far better on the Mac than it is on a Windows machine. But have you have iOS 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you notice that when you go into the App Store, it takes a while to compile the imaging for the apps?
I haven't noticed. I do most of my App Store browsing on just iTunes.
On iTunes.
On the laptop.
It's awful. It's really laggy, and I don't understand why it's like that. To me, they really messed it up with the latest redesign of it.
Maybe they diverted a bunch of developers to fix iOS 6.
Maybe. Google TV gets voice search and quick guide to make content discovery even easier. I have a Google TV. I have not seen this. You definitely need, in order for there to be voice search, you need a microphone connected to it. Another attempt to Google to kind of salvage this half-completed device in typical Google fashion. I have a Google TV, and I use it because it's incorporated with my cable TV now. Because when you connect it, you don't have to go to like input 1, input 2, and that's why I kind of like it. But it's really poorly done. I mean, it's not good. They're not updating it. They're not maintaining it. I believe they had said that in 2012, 80% of the televisions manufactured are going to have Google TV. That was some crazy astronomical number that they put out.
What is it now, 2%?
I mean, 2%? I can't even tell you. Like, it's tiny. It's a fraction. I don't know what changed. Maybe the TV manufacturer just did not want to go with them for whatever reason, but they totally dropped the ball on this. It could have been something great, and in my opinion, it's not. I don't know where you stand on this, Erik, with Google TV.
Did they ever? What was their final solution to how all those NBC and the broadcast networks and so many companies blocked their content from the Google TV, like right after it was released? You probably know better than I do. Whatever happened with that? Did they ever come up with workarounds for owners of this thing, or are you still just out? You can't watch NBC content and Hulu content and that stuff.
Well, there is a workaround for some. There was. I'm not too sure. You could do like a hack with the browser and tell it that tell the browser that it's a desktop and it's not a TV device, and you were able to get through with it. I don't know what the latest update, but I mean, a lot of these apps are still not there. You still don't have an option for them, so they kind of dropped the ball with that. Hulu was the biggest issue that they had because Hulu blocked them, and you couldn't get Hulu on there for a long time.
And what's it now? I'm guessing you have to have Hulu Plus.
I still don't think you have Hulu on there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that's what probably did it in.
You don't have Hulu. I'm 100% actually. You don't have Hulu. You have Netflix, and it's great, but Netflix, it gets tiring after a while of using Netflix, and the library is not as.
And everything has Netflix.
Everything has Netflix, so you could get it everywhere. But they totally dropped the ball. But I think this is just the software development of this. There's a lot of issues with the software itself, and the concept was great because when I initially got it, I was like, wow, this is cool. You could actually search the web on here, and you could pull up websites, and it has Flash. So I could pull up my website, do streaming content, and I could watch it on there. And then you realize it tries to do it, and it crashes every time you try to pull up a website because it runs out of system resources.
That's useful.
So how good could it be? Not that great. And that was my problem with it. Let's do one more story, Erik. What do you say? And then we'll do our picks of the week.
Let's see. What else is here?
There's there's rumors coming out of China. So how accurate could it be? That the industry is gearing up for the iPhone 5S to be available the first half of 2013. So probably 6 months from now. And they're saying there's going to be something like the iTV, an updated iPad also for the first half of 2013. Apple's getting ready to put out. iTV is an awful name. Oh, maybe it's not that bad, actually. The iTV.
That would work.
Not an Apple TV, but an iTV. They're saying also a new iPad, considering there was a new iPad that came out. The iTV is pointing to be an updated Apple TV set-top box. The device, according to some sources, claimed that it acts as a DVR accommodating cable programming, much like a Google TV. For their part, China Times industry sources hasn't said much about the device Apple is reportedly working on. So we are not going to get an actual TV that was predicted about a year ago from everybody, from all the tech pundits. we're going to get an updated version of Apple TV called the iTV, and it's going to be a set-top DVR box that works with the cable. I welcome that. I actually think that's a great idea for them. And to have apps on there.
Sticking with the set-top box.
Yeah, sticking with the set-top box. I cannot see them getting in the TV business.
Right, and I'm happy to say I called this one. I never said they were going to do TV, so yay.
People were really excited for it. Like, I want an Apple TV. No, why? It makes no difference.
Right, because TVs have like a 10-year lifespan, and the set-top box, you want to upgrade that software and you want to switch that out, and it's like, it's $99 now. It's probably going to be even less in the future. Who started to do a dongle? Was that Roku that combined their entire product and do it just like it looks like a USB thumb drive, except it's an HDMI port, I think.
Yeah. Roku's doing that now.
Yeah.
And it's cheap. I think it's like $79. And you know what? That's perfectly upgradable. Every year, if they get a new UI, you just spend the $79 and you just pop it in there.
Absolutely. I think any product strategy that expects people to get a whole new plasma TV or LCD TV every couple of years or every 6 months is just silly.
Would you? But why would they change the name from Apple TV to iTV?
They may not have. I think the reason that they said Apple TV originally, I'm sure it was a trademark issue. Someone's got to own the iTV moniker. Here it's just saying that it's codenamed iTV. A lot of journalism sources use just the codename iTV, so it could just be nothing.
Also, the iPhone 5S is a name. It's going to be. It's going to have a major speed increase of performance. Same strategy that they followed with the iPhone 5. The S name, you know what? I think I'm okay with that as an in-between phone. You get the iPhone 5 and they fix all the bugs in the iPhone 5S, but I feel that it's matured so much, the operating system, that they're going to have to do something drastic with the UI. They have to update the UI of iOS to kind of get people to say, okay, wow, this is really cool. Because what else can they possibly do, Eric?
Right. I mean, the hardware is already, when you look at how far the CPU performance and the graphics performance have expanded on these iPhones, it's stunning. I mean, every 6 months, they double in speed. I mean, I think it's almost faster moving than Moore's Law, especially when they get in the what is the latest one, like 6 cores to do the graphics? It's insane.
Yeah, they do. It really is. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast they're moving ahead. And we just saw the iPad 3 come out, and a 7 months later, they released the iPad 4, and they increased the speed on that thing too.
Meanwhile, it's interesting. I mean, industry-wide, we're seeing a lot of innovation on ARM chips as well as from Intel. The CPUs are just far outpacing. I mean, flash memory, everything's still 16 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes. That has not changed in like 5 years. What's the other one? There's RAM. Even on a new system, Apple's selling these systems with very little RAM. So it's just funny how the CPUs have just gone through the roof on speed, especially the mobile stuff, the low power CPUs, and the rest is just lagged behind.
Yeah. I lied. There's one more story that I kind of wanted to touch on, and that's a Google Fiber story. They've gone live in Kansas City, and they're saying the real world speed test is a unbelievable 700 megabits per second. 700 megabits per second for $70 a month.
It's so unfair.
It's unbelievable. I mean, first of all, that's mind blowing. And I have Fios here. I have 150 by 65, and this makes my bandwidth look like 56K.
Now, you know what's sad though? This is what the internet the information superhighway was supposed to be. It was supposed to be this insane fat pipe with upload and download symmetrical, with a video dial tone, they called it in the 90s. I mean, it's not here yet. I mean, it's in one city in the country. So, I mean, you're looking at the future here, though. This is the incubator for how people will live in the future. It's like this is the home of tomorrow, is the home that has a 700 megabit symmetrical connection and 200 megabit Ethernet. And I love this thing. Have you seen this Home for Hackers that someone started?
Yeah. He lives in a 4-bedroom house run by Home for Hackers on Kansas City's Hanover Heights neighborhood. So what did they do? What are they doing exactly with it?
Some guy who's very charitable at first bought a small 2-floor house, very simple looking older house, like in the middle of a rural area of Kansas City, Missouri, and he's letting people, just hackers or developers or people working on projects that need lots of bandwidth, scientific data, anything, can just come and apparently live there right now for free. He's letting people come. I don't know how they sign up or anything. I'm sure he's got a website going. And soon he wants to, I think, turn a profit, do it on Airbnb or something. And this could be, you really might see bandwidth tourism pretty soon.
Yeah.
People just coming to get big projects done. If you think about it, if you think about how expensive bandwidth is in certain parts of the country, I mean, you might see all the big web servers and websites start setting up shop in this area.
Well, I was going to say, it's still very expensive. It's still very, I mean, and not just certain parts, but I think all around, you look at services like Ustream and Stickum and Justin TV, I'm dying to know what their bandwidth bill is.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're saying the typical things are still expensive, right? Not the Google Fiber.
Yeah, like the typical bandwidth. I mean, just all across the board, it's expensive. I mean, some people have a lot more. Like I'm in a neighborhood that has FiOS, so I'm able to get a lot more for $70. But I'm dying to know what the bandwidth bill is for a company like Ustream.com, Ustream.tv.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dying to know how much they spend on bandwidth, because they have to. There's so much data going in and out of that, and they need trunkloads of bandwidth to survive. And I would love to see what their bill is. And something like this, if Google turns around and says, okay, listen, we're going to offer really cheap bandwidth for enterprise level needs. You're going to get whatever amount, and it's a fraction of the cost. It really, it makes innovation grow a lot faster.
You wouldn't need a computer. I mean, this is the future right here. I mean, if you've got a 700 megabit symmetrical connection, you don't need a CPU in your home. I mean, maybe to do some light lifting, you don't need a hard drive or a storage system. I mean, that's faster than FireWire.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, you can do everything just in the cloud with that kind of bandwidth.
What's funny is that Wi-Fi tops out at 200 megabits.
Yeah,
so
that's the speed of in.
Yeah, so you can't even I mean, reach the limit. I mean, the technology is so far ahead where Wi-Fi technology has not caught up, and you can't even do it. He said the first thing he did was download Ubuntu, and it took him 2 minutes on BitTorrent, and that's probably because the download limit was far less than what he's able to download at.
I think the Pirate Bay is going to sail ship over to Kansas City, Missouri.
I mean, this is amazing, and I think this is great, and I think this is extremely innovative, and this is exactly what this country needs. It's somebody like Google putting these fiber lines out there and just saying, here you go, it's virtually nothing. We're just putting it out there.
Absolutely.
I'm dying to know what this does to the market in Kansas City for bandwidth. Who else are the ISPs in Kansas City, and why would you go to them?
Definitely. And I'm sure they had to, they looked all over the country for just the right city in the nation to do this kind of pilot program. I'm sure there are a lot of towns where this could be difficult legally, difficult to buy and compete with them legally. I mean, you've seen how in some countries, I think one of the Carolinas at least, they've got like, Time Warner and AT&T wrote the bill saying you cannot compete with them. You cannot set up a municipal or consumer-owned fiber lines or anything like that. A lot of places have protections for AT&T and the big guys. So I'm really glad that they're doing this, and I really hope that this changes everything.
Yeah, I think this is more of a showpiece saying, look what we could do if we really wanted to, and we could pretty much kill your business.
It's to scare them.
I think it is, and I kind of applaud Google. People fear Google of being this big company and it's Big Brother and they're controlling everything, and it's too many. Their hand is in too many pots, and just people are afraid of that. But I think this is a great example of what a company like Google could do. Come in there, force prices, and you know what? It's private business forcing other private businesses to lower their prices and to be competitive, rather than government regulation. This is how we're going to be able to regulate this market and to bring prices down and provide high-speed bandwidth, because guess what? It's not costing Time Warner more money to give you 50 megabits download or 15 megabits download. Right. It's not costing them. They're not losing money on bits and mega. It doesn't work like that. It's the same hardware that's controlling it. They're just able to do it because of lack of competition. And you know what? Time Warner Cable here in Queens, Time Warner Cable is the only shop in town. FiOS came. It was a 5-year battle to get FiOS in here, and it has devastated Time Warner, because nobody is staying with Time Warner when you could get the speeds that you're able to get with FiOS and get the service you're able to get with FiOS. Why would you? And it's far cheaper. I think
Good.
I think it's to get in. I think 25 by 25 is $49.95 a month. I think, and that's after the 1-year promotional of $29. And I have my issues with Verizon, but I mean, try to compete with that, and they're not. They don't even try. So
there's a whole other story that I don't want to get into because we don't really know what it means yet. But AT&T recently announced that they're pulling up all the old infrastructure. I think they're leaving some copper in place, but they're changing the whole phone system from the multiplexed relay or whatever it's called, the old way, to a fully IP-based network. And the pessimistic side of that is saying this could just be to get around all regulation and be totally unregulated. Like they started to cut off phone service and do other things like that there's a benefit to them by being off of the traditional system. It's not regulated. So let's hope it's not that, because if they did that, then they, it get the even greater power. So I hope that we see increased competition like this. Competition is good.
I read a very interesting article a couple of months ago about the maintenance on these copper lines for companies like Verizon and AT&T, and it's killing them across the country just to maintain the copper lines, and they want nothing to do with it. So, but
why do they do it?
They have to, because
so,
I believe
they can't just put fiber.
They can, and that's what they're trying to do. But I think the cost of fiber was so high. Now they're realizing, well, if we put fiber, we're the only game in town. It's not like Kovat could come in and lease the fiber line from us. I believe they can, but the pricing structure is astronomical, and they won't be able to do it.
You're right. There's that issue too. It's they get around a number of line sharing provisions if they can replace it with all fiber or tear up the wires. And I think what they're also doing, like you said, some areas they can't pull up the copper. So I think they're like changing the computer at the end and at the start and the end, and then it's going to send a different signal as opposed to just an analog voice channel, which just is very inefficient.
Yeah. Interesting stuff though. But it is time to start wrapping up, and it's time for our picks of the week. Each week we pick a product, a website, a whatever that we liked, and we choose it as our pick of the week. And this week, you know what, guys, I dropped the ball. It was such a crazy week. I don't have a pick of the week, but Erik does. And Erik, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is the Borderlands 2 Season Pass, and the first downloadable content is already available. It's been out a couple of weeks, but I just started playing it, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see how large the expansion pack is. I think they're going to do 4 of these. I bought the Season Pass, which is that you're probably familiar with it on Xbox and probably PlayStation. You buy a Season Pass, and then it saves you like 25, 35% or so over the next year's worth of content releases. So basically, you buy the game, and then with the Season Pass, you get free access then, or prepaid access to all the download packs. It's like getting 2 games. I mean, you sort of pay for 2 games, but it's like getting a second game. So it's really cool if you like the game. And I love Borderlands 2. I've professed my love for that game. I love that they combine the first-person shooter element with sort of that Zelda questing and inventory and not that sort of action RPG style. I love that. And I love the over the top and the humor and the crazy guns and the crazy laser ammunition and all that kind of stuff. So I really love that. And then I got my Call of Duty Black Ops 2 in the mail, which I pre-ordered like months ago, and darn it, it's just not as fun. I mean, I'm sitting here now with like these realistic. I'm like, oh man, this gun has a realistic clip size and a realistic reload time, and you can't sprint forever, and you can't jump from infinitely high heights and survive. It's like all of the stuff that makes one of those over-the-top shooters fun. It's like, oh, you kind of lose that with the realism.
That's really cool. I still have not played Borderlands. I need to get it. I think it's something that I would enjoy, actually.
Start with the second one. I picked up a used copy of the Borderlands 1 after I finished the other one, and I put it down. I haven't picked it up again because the frame rate was bad on the first one, apparently, and the guns aren't as cool, and the navigation is hard. Like, it doesn't show you on the map where you're supposed to go. It has this bizarre compass system, and the inventory system is bad. So if you're new to the system, I would start with Borderlands 2, actually.
I have, you know what? I'm gonna do a pick. I recently got my hands on a Logitech C920. I've used this, the webcam. I've used a C910, and it was a great camera. But I kind of held off on getting the C920 because everybody said it's the same camera. There's no difference in quality. You're not going to notice anything different. It's identical. The only thing is that the speakers are different. The positioning is different. It does 1080p for streaming, which I really don't need. And just people are saying that it's the same thing. Actually, it's not the same thing. I'm on it right now. This is the Logitech C920, and I have to tell you, I'm really blown away by the coloring, the skin tones on this thing, and the overall quality of the camera. If I compare this to the C910 and the C920, I compare them side by side, the C910 is a little grainy compared to the C920. And I don't know if they're doing something with the software. They're manipulating via software because according to what I've read, it's the same sensor on both. But this is a far better camera than the C910. It's about $79. I actually like it. I'm going to do an actual review of this device, and I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison because I do want to see what it's like on the same shot. I haven't compared them with the same shot, but the C910 to me is totally grainy compared to the C920, and it's a great camera. So it's made by Logitech. I believe it's $79 on Amazon. Nothing crazy. The Logitech C920 is my pick of the week. I like it. I like it. It's a good camera.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't used either of those cameras.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yesterday, we were doing This Week in Radio Tech, and Kirk was using it, and he was sending 1080p video over Skype.
And that was the shot a second ago, right? That you were showing the sideways shot.
Yeah, this is the C920. Yeah,
looks good.
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, I'm on a $1,200 camera straight across from me. I have the HF G10, and this is the C920. So, is there $1,000 difference? I don't know. You know, it's kind of hard to say. When
What's that one cost?
The HF G10.
Yeah,
it's about
no, a little
lot. $79.
Wow. Yeah, for web streaming and to have an additional camera like that, give you some different angles. That's a great deal.
Yeah, phenomenal.
It's got
camera.
a great. Yeah, I mean that's a great shot right there. You got a great wide angle effect going there, and you got the close up or the telephoto for the front one. That's great.
Yeah. And that was our pick of the week. All right, guys, time to wrap it up. Eric, I appreciate it. You hanging out with me. Suncast was not here today. I don't know where he is. He's not telling us. I think he's defecting. But to get more information on what you're up to, Eric, ericlanigan.com, right?
Yep. And Twitter.
And Twitter at Erik Lanigan. I'm at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. If you miss any portion of the show, you could, of course, catch it on our website, gfknetwork.com, where we archive it via video and audio. We're also on iTunes. We're on the Microsoft Windows podcast marketplace. I don't know the proper term anymore of this store that they have. And anywhere else podcasts are available, we're pretty much there. And that's it, guys. So we'll see you all next week on Tech News Weekly. Good night, everybody.